Welcome back, viewer, to Chungu cha Jamii. Today we are talking about how to raise an autistic child. Do you have a friend, a neighbor, a sister, or are you yourself bringing up an autistic child? What are the challenges? What are the ups and downs that you go through while you're raising this child? Send in your question, your comments across all our social media networks. That's GBS TV Africa, or SMS line is 21144. I have a guest who has just joined in. I will allow him to introduce himself so that we can continue with the conversation. Welcome, guest.
Thank you, Eunice. Hello, everyone. My name is Benjamin. I'm a specialist in mind education, and also I do counseling.
Welcome on the show, Mr. Benjamin. In the first segment, we were with Madam Felicity, who is also still with us, and talking about raising an autistic child. In our society, right now, we can say a lot of people are well informed about autism, but again, you find that bringing up a special child with a tough economy, with the challenges, it becomes very difficult, especially if a mother doesn't know or the family. Like in the case of Madam Felicity bringing up a grandson who they came to know past 14 years that the grandson was autistic, and different cases that you might have interacted with, parents not knowing at an early age. They come to realize it later because of the different character that is portrayed by this child. How is it? And how now, after they have learned, how do this particular parent have to be able to conduct him or herself and also be able to help this child?
If there is something that I would say, I would say that especially for me dealing with the world of the heart, the world of the heart is a world that is hidden. And mostly you realize that most of the people, the things that appear in their lives, and especially when we see from the Bible talks about one thing, and then it says that guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Which means all the issues of life that I will ever meet in my life, they are all originating from my heart. And then in the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, there is this verse which says like this: that the spirit of a man will sustain him in infirmity, but a wounded spirit, who can bear? You know, most of the people, especially because most of the people, they don't know that they have this kind of a condition when they are young. They know after some time. And then mostly, and because of the traditions and the different cultures, there are people who think that this is about witchcraft. They think about many other things, divination and so many other things. Even sometimes they start thinking of wenda mtoto wangu alirogwa, ama ametolewa kafara. And one time, as I was doing my classes, I met with one of my students who is a mother of 4. And then after class, she said that she really wanted to talk to me. And when she came to talk to me, she talked about the daughter who is in Form 3. And then she had told me that she changed the school more than 5 times, simply because of one thing. This girl would go to school and then she would fight, she would shout at people, even the teachers, and then she would be expelled from school. But for her, she didn't know. Most of the time when the daughter came back home, she was fighting with the daughter because sometimes the daughter would shout at her and the other siblings. But, you know, as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about one thing which is very important. The heart of the mother and the heart of the daughter. You know, for her, especially when they have these kind of conditions, because people cannot understand them, most of the time you realize that people go against them. And this leads to them getting isolated in some way. It leads them to getting isolated, and even also it affects the parents in such a way that even sometimes they feel like they are getting isolated themselves also. And if it happens in, let's say, for example, you're living in an apartment, you realize that it's kind of people are trying to like isolate you in a way, because the child will not be behaving like this only in the house, but also as she meets with other people who are living in the apartment, she has that kind of a character.
Sure.
So most of the time you realize that it affects the parents, not only the child, but also the parents and the society. But as I think about it even more, this is not about the child, this is not about the parent, this is not about the people or the society, it is all about our Creator. Because for me, one thing that I believe, because I base everything on the Bible, one thing that I believe is that there is nothing that can happen to a man, not unless God allows it to happen.
Very sure. Thank you for that. Everything that happens, God has allowed. It is very, allow me to say this, it's easier said than done. In most of the cases, I remember there's a time where we were having a fellowship at memorial service, and this one preacher stood up and said, "It is easy for you to comfort me and tell me that God has allowed this particular person to pass on because you're not in that shoe." Like I was saying, and in most of the cases, we tend to take care of this affected child who is being brought up with autism, and we forget about the parents. Now, coming to you, Madam Felicity, when we are bringing up a child, in most of the time, the society focuses, and also the parent focuses on this affected child with the autism spectrum, and they forget about taking care of themselves. What would you say when you are bringing up an autistic child with this parent, the young parents more so, who get so confused, so lost, and end up isolating themselves like Mr. Benjamin has told us, and also getting isolated by the society because they cannot understand what is happening with this particular child? What does a parent need to do to be able to take care of him or and herself as they continue taking care of this child?
I think earlier on, when we started the program, I explained about the parent support group. You cannot focus on the child and leave the parent, because from experience I know this. My family, my daughter and the husband were so much affected by issues of Andrew. So, and this is where now I will tell you, you cannot focus on the child. You have to include the parents in this process. First of all, most of them blame themselves, but you have to form groups that you educate these parents, and therefore it is very, very important for, say, for Autism Society of Kenya to be able to continue with the formation of parents group all over Kenya, so that we can be able to educate the parents about what is happening to their child. So you cannot focus on the child only. I know there are a lot of parents who focus. There are a lot of people who focus on the child. I know it's been there before. Before we started this engaging the parents on issues of children who are affected by the spectrum of autism. believed in witchcraft, they believed that prayers work, they believe in all those things. Well, I don't want to get into that. This is why I wanted to remain on the main subject of saying that there is a process that Autism Society of Kenya discovered, and it is the one that we use. And I can tell you, when we were active, this is because when we started, we had fundings from the international community. We were able even to have autism units in schools like the city primary school, where we have now boys, because most of the children who are affected by autism spectrum disorder are boys. Don't ask me why, I do not know. So can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me, Madam Eunice?
Yes, I can hear you, Madam Felicity. Let me ask you this question. When now we have said that a greater number of affected children are the male children, and that also you cannot only focus on the sick child only, but also the parent. My question would be, as the founder of the Autism Society of Kenya, what is the youngest parent that you have received who has an autistic child, bringing up a child, and how was it for this particular parent? Because I'm trying to look at it, we are having issues of young girls getting raped, young girls getting involved with sexual activities and end up getting children. Because at an age of 15 and maybe 20, if a girl gets pregnant and end up getting an autistic child, it might be very challenging bringing up a child who is also autistic and a very special child. What is the youngest age at as the founder of Autism Society of Kenya? What is the youngest age that you have encountered?
Well, the youngest could be as young as about 2 years. But I don't think, I can't remember cases of any girl that Autism Society of Kenya handled who got pregnant and so forth, because we had created massive awareness, and parents were the family. Let me not talk about parents, because let me say a lot of parents, especially the grandparents, if you involve them, and also now the parents of the child, let's focus on the family that has this child affected by autism spectrum disorder. You cannot isolate and say the parents, because there are also grandparents, they are also aunties. It's a question of the family. To avoid a lot of misunderstandings in this particular family, like there has been a lot of divorces, where a child within the spectrum of autism was the cause of this divorce. But because of the health that I told you again, finances are the biggest problem in this process, because you are able to form these support groups. You are able to educate these people, and therefore you are able to travel afar, you are able to educate these people, and therefore they will understand this child. They will understand it is not the man, it is not the woman, but this, like your guest said, sometimes it's the creator who knows why particularly this child, because in a family there could be 5 boys, but only one who is affected by the spectrum of autism, and I have several. So really, some of these things are complicated. You don't want to get mixed up with these issues without helping. Because when you talk about the child who is affected by autism, and probably got pregnant and had a child. I don't know of any. I have never heard of any. Maybe because of your program, somebody might come across and say, yes, my daughter or my granddaughter or somebody that I know, Uncle may talk about a girl who got pregnant and she was affected by the autism spectrum disorder. I don't know of any, but I know a lot of boys who have been affected. According to international community, it is 4-1. If you have, it is 4 boys to 1 girl. And that tells you that the girls are very few. Again, I don't know why, because even the international community have not been able to tell us why.
Thank you so much for that information. When we come back after the break, Madam Felicity has mentioned something very crucial about let's not look at it from just direct family members in terms of a mother and a father, but also the whole family at large, like the sisters, the aunties, the grandparents, because they're all affected. Even me as a neighbor, I'm also affected, because if this child comes fight my child, I'll be affected without understanding why this child is fighting. I'll also pick a fight with this particular family and also with this particular child. And also the divorce cases, because you'll find that there is the blame game saying that kwetu hatuna vitu kama hizi, zimetoka kwenyu, and also kwetu you get. And in most of the time when we are having such issues, you will find that the mother is the one who is going to carry all the blame and the baggage, because again, in matters to do with divorce cases on the extreme measures, a mother will never throw away a child unless you've identified it at an early stage. That is when you can say maybe a mother gets to abandon a child. But at the age of past 10, 12, 15 years, it's very difficult for a mother to abandon a child. You'd rather die fighting for this particular child than have everyone being against this child, especially once that you've identified this is the case. So when we come back, how do you now help this family to unite rather than pointing fingers and blaming each other? Because like Madam Felicity had mentioned, it's not a disease. It is just a spectrum that a child is born with, that with the continuity of a parent not understanding and feeding a child wrongly, again maybe because of finances and not understanding, that is when this spectrum continues growing and the child continues getting worse. So viewer, when we come back after the break, these are some of the things that we are going to delve into. Continue sending in your question, your comments across all our social media networks. That's GBS TV Africa. Our SMS line is 21144. We'll be back shortly.